Hello, it's Don again. Welcome back to the Way to Native Chronicles. Gonna do something today about making a holster for this new Model 629 I picked up for wilderness protection. And what happened is I'm replacing, well, I'm keeping this gun, but this is the Model 29 I've always used for years. But as you can see, it's a mighty long barrel, and it's not exactly the handiest thing for carrying around. It sure is better than carrying a shotgun or a rifle, but it's would be preferable to have a shorter barreled handgun. So I went out and got one of these, and for those of you who followed the channel for a while, you're aware of the fact that I'm located in Canada, and some of you might be scratching your heads and saying, well, you can't buy handguns in Canada. But actually, if you need a handgun for a lawful occupation, as the law states, you can. So pretty well, I guess 99% or more of Canadians can't buy handguns because the government will refuse to allow a transfer from the seller to the purchaser of handguns, except for those who need them for a lawful purpose occupation, which would be, I guess, like security guards and and trappers. So I was thinking about that. I've been using this gun, which is really designed for long range IMSA handgun metallic silhouette shooting with a 4-position front sight for years, and I'm good with this gun, and it's really good for long range accuracy. It's scary accurate, actually. Um, but I always did want to have one of these 4.25-inch models uh, for carry in the bush, and actually had one many years ago, probably about 44 years ago, I think. And I sold it after a few years because I wanted to get into this metallic silhouette shooting sport. So, typical story, sold it and regret it. And then it seemed impossible to get another one. It was either because of lack of availability or lack of funds, because doggone, handguns are expensive nowadays. So, but what I did when I sat around and thought about it some more recently, I realized, well, there's probably a lot of handguns sitting from estate sales to gun stores that are have nowhere to go, maybe to ship to the United States for selling them, because hardly anybody in Canada can buy one. So I went to the local gun shop and I asked the owner there, what he had, and I told him what I wanted, and he had exactly what I wanted, which was one of these. And so I picked it up about a month or so ago, and I've been practice shooting with it. It's very handy. It's a really nice gun. Not quite as good a trigger as the Model 29-3, but it'll do. It's better in some other respects too, though. So now we solved that part of the equation. I need to build a holster, and that's what I had for this gun here. You can see I made a nice holster for this gun years ago, and it has that flap that nicely keeps the snow and stuff out of the gun. It's got the end closed so you don't stuff snow up the muzzle of the gun. Waterproofed, all that kind of stuff, and made a belt with it, and fortunately made it in such a way that this belt could be used for more than one gun, because it just slips around the little hoop there. And another thing that was fortunate is, at the time, I made myself a really careful, thorough set of plans for making a holster. Making holsters, I don't know, maybe it's better in the States, but boy, in Canada, there's so little handgun use, especially for carry, that finding a holster, you might as well forget it. So around here, the solution is to make your own holster. So what I did is I made a pattern. Let me just kind of move this stuff aside. And part of the reason I'm showing you this is there may be some of you watching this that also wants to build your own holster. Now, I'm going about this in kind of a roundabout way, this video, so I hope you put up with me. It's nothing really planned, but what I want to show you how to do is how to make a holster yourself and some of the basic leatherworking techniques involved. It doesn't require expensive tools or nothing like that. Leatherworking is a great little hobby to get into as a sideline to augment or supplement what a lot of things that you do, including shooting and hunting. Now, before we continue, I just want to say I really appreciate the support so many of you give this channel. It truly gives the opportunity to keep the lights on around here. And let me tell you, in Canada, it's not cheap to live here anymore. If you haven't already, please click like and subscribe. And if you want to go a step further, you can use the super thanks button right at the bottom on YouTube. You can also check the description for my Buy Me a Coffee link in the description section. That also includes my store of online digital products in Buy Me a Coffee. And I've also started adding some merchandise to this channel. For example, this Way to Native Chronicles large size coffee mug. Go ahead and buy it. You can see it all listed at the bottom here. So just mean to say every bit of support you can provide helps, but just viewing is also a great way of supporting by itself. Now here we go. I got a pattern here. I originally made a pattern like this for that big gun. Kind of looks like it fits in there, right? But the big gun, it went a lot longer. So having made this nice cardboard template, I was able to just reduce the length of the barrel portion, and I can make now a holster for the new gun because it's dimensioned exactly the same as the Model 29.3 except for the length of barrel. So now I have a well-proven design for holster for this short barreled handgun. And for those of you who are interested in making a holster, I actually have some plans available. I used to just give them away for free, but I produced a lot of plans for this channel, and unfortunately the volume of requests for I just send them out for free became so much that I was just doing it every day, and it's it's a lot of work, responding and corresponding and stuff. So I put these plans as one of the sets of plans I have available on my Buy Me a Coffee page, and it has a product section on it. I will put a link in the description for anybody interested. If you want to get this set of plans, it's a very detailed set of plans. It also includes plans from Ruger Security 6 and also a Smith Wesson Model 617-22 handgun. As in addition to this one here, I'm going to show you, which includes the complete instructions for making this belt here, including a speed loader. So it's a really good, well-proven rig. For those of you who need a handgun holster and belt and all that stuff, I'd recommend it. I don't think you'll be unhappy with it, especially since drawing this out, I did it on a 1-inch grid so that you can replicate it yourself easier, because it is a big piece of paper, but it's all drawn at 1-to-1 scale and all that kind of stuff. Check the product out and you'll find out more about it in the Buy Me a Coffee page. Okay, so let's get on to this. I've taken one step already. I got this pattern. And this is where you want to really slow down and think your way through what you're doing here when you're making a holster or almost any leather item. It's easy to make a stupid mistake, I'll tell you, it really is. So just take your time, think things through, and now I'm ahead of the game having a good pattern, but when I first made this pattern, I did it on paper and stuff, and then would wrap the paper around and make sure I have enough leeway to do the sewing part around the edges, right? But you do have a little bit of forgiveness in the fact that with leather you can soak it and stretch it, cover the gun with plastic or something like that so it doesn't rust, and then soak that leather and just shove it in there and it'll form to the gun. But there's only so far you can go with that, and you have to have things like, where is this flap going to meet this part here, things like that. Just take your time making a pattern, unless you're using one of mine, and not just think about that, but then when you sit down to make your cuts on the leather, you want to choose a part of the leather where it's going to have, where you don't have any ripply stuff or some scars on the leather, ideally, okay? Now that part seems pretty straightforward, but here's a real easy one. You can still make really dumb mistakes, and later on you'll be kicking yourself. Let's say I laid this down on here, and I said, okay, yeah, that looks like a good spot. I draw my pattern onto the leather with, it's good to use a little Sharpie for that. And then I cut it out, and then I realize that when I make it, it's going to be the rough side sticking on the outside, right? So that's an easy mistake to make. Um, in the case of this, it only comes from just sitting around thinking it, imagining it as it's put together, what everything's going to look like. You got to draw this pattern from the rough side of the leather, and then you can cut it out, okay? So just mentioning that because there's some really dumb, easy mistakes you can make. Now, another easy mistake is, I want this hoop here. I also want this little tie, this little loop. That's what this part sticks out for, sewed back into the holster. This has to be sewed into it. Um, you got to think about what the order you do things in. It's really important to think this through, how you're going to proceed. Are you going to get yourself painted into a corner, basically, right? So when it comes to putting this hoop on, if I already cut this out and then sewed up this holster, it's going to be a heck of a job trying to sew this in here when this is all closed up. Same thing goes with this. This is pretty well impossible, right? Because this isn't like a piece of cloth that you just go knit, 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 knit. This is using your saddle stitch, a kind of a figure-8 stitch with 2 needles, and you're going through really hard leather, thick leather. We're going to be getting into that. It's a bit of a challenge too, but you can see like the sewing work, you want it to be really nice looking, right? Nice and consistent and even. So the only way to really do this is do it this first and do this first before you close up the whole holster, okay? And again, it's an easy mistake to make, and you might even want to, if you're going to put some waterproofing on this leather, you might want to do that now after you cut this out, and do that right away then, because once it's all together, it's kind of hard to get that waterproofing treatment all the way inside there. I know really how important that is, but I did put waterproofing on the outside, which is the main thing. Better to have it on the outside and inside, though, I think. So that's covered the preliminaries, right? Next stage, honestly, the most nervous part of doing leather work like this, partly because leather is expensive commodity, and I really hate to wreck a piece of leather. So I've got to cut this out here, and the cuts that are really kind of give me anxiety are these cuts like this. You see where I have an inside corner like that? I've got to be cutting along, and then I got to turn and go like that. The outside cuts are easy, but when you have to do an inside cut like that, if your knife slips, now you got a scar across. It's helped somewhat by the fact that I'm going to be cutting this from the rough side. So if my knife does kind of go boop like that, maybe it won't go all the way through, and it won't. But if I did that on this side, you have a permanent scar on that leather, and it just kind of, I had a perfect piece of leather, and now look at that, it's flawed, right? So I've usually done this with cutting with a box cutter, but yesterday I thought I'm gonna try again one of these X-Acto knives. This is not X-Acto knife brand, it's a Fisker, I think it's called, but it's the same basic thing, and I'm gonna use this sharp angled point blade, which is going to be a little better for turning. Really, cutting along these lines is not all that hard. Once you get going with a knife, the knife likes to just follow a straight line, although perhaps a little less so with these pointy ones. But it's going to be easier to turn that corner without slipping up. Especially when you get into some of these tighter turns, like there's another inside turn, there's another one. And I think this knife is going to help a little bit, but if it doesn't, we're going to find out in this video, and I will be switching back to my box cutters. And it's quite important that you have a knife, whatever you use, that's very sharp. That's one of the things I like about box cutters. I can just break them off, and I've got a fresh, sharp edge. This here is a brand new blade, so I should be okay. I've also bought, normally I do this all on an old drafting table, this cutting operation that has a self-healing mat on it, and I've been using that for 35 years probably, and cutting on. As long as you don't cut in the same place repeatedly, you're not going to wreck it. And this stuff here, what I've got, is also self-healing mat. I picked that up yesterday, partly because I'd like to work upstairs, and I was thinking of making this video, and I want something portable now. So I'm going to try out this new mat here. This Canadian, this is about 45 bucks, so they're not that cheap, but got to do what you got to do, right? So maybe we should get down to doing some cutting here. What I'm going to do after that cutting is I'm going to start doing I'll show a little bit of the sewing technique. I have a whole bunch of other videos, by the way, so take a look up here, and you're going to see a playlist of all my leather working videos. I should have mentioned that earlier on in the video. But look through there. All these techniques that I'm using, I cover in quite a bit of detail in those videos on how to do you want to do a little groove along the edge where you're going to stitch, things like that, and how you do that figure 8 stitch. I'm not going to get bogged down too much in those details, but be aware of the fact that there's more resources on this channel for that. And while we're on that topic, I appreciate you supporting this channel as well, of course, right? This stuff all takes time to do, and there are expenses involved. So I think we are ready to do this. Maybe I'll put that little second camera on so I got 2 views of this, okay? Give me a second while I set up. Okay, I think we're ready to get going here. I'll try to show how this is done a little bit. Now, where to start? I think I'm going to start down here. I'm going to see how well this knife cuts. Oh, yeah. Now, when you cut, you don't have to go through all in one shot. Oh, yeah, I like this little blade. I can see this is going to work good. It's good for making the curves. So try to cut right on the line, and as you make recuts down the line, try to stay on that same line. You're going to have to just take your time. Like I said, this is move it around so you can see where your line is going. Now, maybe I have a little bit of an advantage that I used to be a draftsman for quite a few years, so I'm kind of used to drawing. But you know, when it comes right down to it, this doesn't have to be super precise. Once you start to sew the pieces of leather together, you will be able to kind of meet them up, and if they don't meet exactly lined up, you can always trim it off after you've made after you put things together and get it perfected a little more, so you can refine it. You'll notice here too, I've got a dot here that's where the two buckles go through. Okay, so I've made my first cut through here. I am not through yet, right? Okay. I'm gonna just pause this now, having gone through that, and I'll finish this cut and take it out because it's gonna be just repeating what I just did here. Probably gonna have to go through, I'll tell you how many passes I had to go through to get through this leather. It's pretty thick leather. It's another thing I could have mentioned. Don't be afraid to use thick leather. It's nice to have a holster that's really stiff. So I'll get back to you once I got this thing cut out. Well, I now have the pattern cut out, and it only took basically just one more pass with that X-Acto knife and a few little tweaks here and there. While I was doing that too, I thought I should mention that one of the other reasons for using a very sharp blade is that leather has a tendency to have some hard corpuscles, or whatever you would call it, kind of little lumpy stuff. Maybe it's veins or something that you go along your cutting and you hit them, and just like hitting little rocks, and you have to really cut through them. So that's where a sharp knife does make a difference too. Just saying. Now I have this pattern cut out, and as I was saying before, there's a certain order you want to do this stuff in, and that is going to be the return of this little flap here, so that I get something like that here. I'm just gonna put this so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to have this curl into there, and then I'm also going to want to have this little belt loop onto the holster, and this is something that I really have to do right away. I don't want to get stuck, paint myself into a corner, as I was saying before. So this part is very important to attend to, part of thinking ahead when you're working with leather. So what do I do first? I want to sew this thing onto here, right? Well, the way I go about it is I'm going to take a tool like this. Now I have this marked as this is going to be the top side, and it's going to flip over like this and go down here. I'm going to make this wet in order to make it bend easier. I know this is the side that I'm going to want to bend first, so I'm going to dip that in this water for a little bit. It really doesn't take very much to make the leather really get nice and pliable. So let's get it right down there. Let that water really soak into it, and see as it starts to change color that the leather is really soaked. So now I'll be able to make this bend here a lot easier. Yeah, that's good. Maybe flatten it down a little bit, but I'm gonna have to open it up again too. Okay, so I can get a good bend on that now. Now what I'm gonna have to do is, let's just move this over here for a second. I'm gonna have to do something about getting a nice line on this piece of leather, because I like to have all these the thread in a countersunk groove. That way, when you rub against it, it doesn't wear off the thread. And the thread I use is not really thread; it's flax, Really good sturdy stuff. This is going to be all saddle stitches using 2 needles when I get down to that part. But the first part is I got to make myself a line for putting the holes through the leather. So I'm going to take this, and again I'm kind of checking, so it's going to be around like this. So this is going to be one of the sides here. I better put my glasses on. And we're going to just take this, and hopefully you can see that. I'm going to cut a line right through here. See this little tool, that thing keeps you a certain distance from the edge, and that little piece there has a little knife groove on it that makes it cut a groove. So when I cut through, you can see a little curl of leather comes out, and that's giving me my bit of a groove there. Now the other line, I don't want to readjust this thing. I could if I wanted to, but I'm going to do the other one sort of by eyeball. So I'll make that one right around here. I'm just running the bowl of that thing into the next one. There we go. So now I got 2 grooves, and I have to make some holes through this, because you're not going to take a needle and just poke that through here. This is thick leather. Now there are some various ways of doing that. I'll put all my little leather making tools here with me, but I'm not going to be using all of them. And I'll tell you, there's one of the tricky parts of this leather work with thick leather is getting the holes in with these. What I use is these little pointed tongs like this. I have one like that, I have one like that, and I even have one that's got a few tongs broken off it, like that. You might wonder why have these different ones. Well, this is kind of ideal for doing long runs. And you just hook, you punch it through, and then you take the last hole of the previous punch and you line it up with the first fork there and punch it through, and you can get all your tines through. It's actually good for maintaining good spacing. This one here is also good. Maybe you can get yourself around the gentle curve a little bit better because it's not so long. And then this one here is for really small curves. But now, having said that, there's one other additional consideration. You punch through with this puppy here, it's a real hard job to get the fork out of the leather after it's gone through. You want to get it right through, and then you've got to pull the thing out of the leather. Now this little piece of leather here, I'm guessing it might not be too hard to pull through, but if it is, I'm going to go to a shorter one, and if it's really tough, I'm going to just do 2x2s like this, okay? But I'm going to try first with this long one here, see if I can get away with that. Now, what I have to do with that is I have to use a hammer, and I've got this piece of 2x2 stick here, 2x2 lumber, just soft wood, so that when my tongs go through, I don't wreck the tongs. And maybe this stuff, everything's going to start bouncing around here pretty quick, I think. But we'll see if we can survive. Okay, let's get this started. I can follow my groove to get a good line. I'm putting it over top of the leg I've got of this table. Yeah, let's see how that looks. There, all the tongs are through. Now, try to get them out. Not too bad. Well, not too easy either. Okay, yeah, that's coming through good. So now you can see that's how that looks there. I've got my holes through, and I'm just going to run this line down, put my first tongue in the hole of the last hole there so that I maintain that spacing. See, it just leaves little holes in the bottom there. I'm actually punching through further than I need to. Let's give her another one here. Seems to go through easier when the leather is wet too, now that I think about it. Okay, so you have to work this stuff to get it off. Eh? Don't want to bend the tongs too much, just ripping it off. I try to take it off evenly, because you could. Now here, I'm going to overlap a few tongs. I think I'll go to this point here. Yeah, that should do the trick. Do these guys. There we go. So I got one line done. Let's do a second line, because I want to have a little bit more lacing strength on this side of that hoop, because that's where all the stress to pull it away from the holster comes from, right? Okay, so now I've got my two rows here. The leather is kind of distorted and stuff because it's wet, but we'll be okay. Now we got this made, and we have to take a look at where to put this. Like it's going to go like this and then wrap around, right? Fortunately, my guess when I did it the first time was actually pretty good. So I'm going to just kind of, I mean, this doesn't have to be absolutely 100% perfect, but I would say that, yeah, okay. I would say putting it, yeah, I'll put this beside there to give me a mark. So that's about where it was. And about this height, let's see, it's going to have to be there. So I'd say right about there is where I should be putting this thing. Yeah, I'd say that's about right. And about that angle. Okay, let's see how that goes. Okay, now how am I going to mark that? And which side do I put it on? Yeah, I do put it on the smooth side. Okay, yeah. So I have this here. Try not let that move too much. Now that's where I'm going to use this sewing awl. I guess you call that an awl. Just something with real nice little pointy end to it. And I'm going to mark all my holes with this guy. I think this is going to work. Yeah. Okay. It's on that side. Thinking. Yeah, it's got to be. It's easy to get confused. So each of these holes, you don't have to go all the way through, but I want to mark where they are like this so that they match up with the holes on this when I go to sew. I might think that's a lot of extra work and fussiness for nothing, but based on experience, I can tell you, you're way better, save way more time just by putting a little bit of prep into this stage. Because once the two holes don't line up, you're sitting there with a needle that can't find the other hole on the other side. And when I'm doing it right against the side that has the where the two edges are going to meet too. So even if the holes have gone through a little bit of an angle, this sewing awl is going to put the corresponding hole in this close alignment to what I need as possible. So now that I've got that off, I can take that away, and you can see now I have a nice set of holes to use as my basis for punching these. And I'm going to do it from this side here. So we will take that hammer and let's proceed to punch some holes. Yeah, that's lined up there pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, that's good enough through. Want to get those tongs all the way through. Okay, so now I've got both rows done here, and we can now move on to the next stage, which is going to be the sewing part. Okay, so this part is going to be on here and then bend over like that. And I've already kind of moistened it. I'm not going to moisten it again because I don't want to distort, stretch and distort these holes. They're matching up right now quite nicely. So this is where we take our flaxed or waxed flax, I guess is what you call this stuff. I used to have a big spool of this at one time, and so you can see I've used up quite a bit of it over the years. And then you might wonder, okay, I'm going to do one row of this, one row for each. Yeah, I could actually I could just connect these guys too. Put one extra hole here in the middle. That's what I think I'll do. There's where that little two holes fork works quite nicely. There we go. That should be close enough. Okay. There. Okay, so I'm going to make this all one continuous piece, and this is something I want you to kind of pay heed to too. You'd think that for about this length of sewing, you might need that much flax to go around it, but you forget then maybe that it's actually got to go around it twice, because we're going to go like this. So you're going to use twice as much as what appears here. So I'm going to make this long, okay, at least, because you want to have a little bit left over on the end of this needle too. So in fact, whatever you think it is, make it a little longer. So I'm going to use this much, and hopefully that's not going to be overly much. You might not believe me, but it's got to go through the two thicknesses of this leather to make it there. So let's just cut this off. Hopefully I don't want to waste it too much either, but it's even more wasteful to screw it up. So just do it right and be done with it. I like this little X-Acto knife because that's a sheath for it. Okay, now I'm going to need needle. Where's my needles? Oh yeah, there they are. Okay, so I just got a few of these needles. The needles you want to use for this kind of leather work are not sharp needles. They have to be blunt type needles because you don't want needles that dig in and catch on the leather. You just want them to push through pre-made holes. Okay, so I'll try to give you a little bit of a close-up here of what the needle should look like. Something like that. Not sure how close that camera can focus, but right around there. See, it's a blunt nose on the needle. So, and just a little eye on it. And of course, then you gotta somehow finagle this thing through the eye, which is not too hard. But a lot of guys, a lot of leather workers, they have fancy methods of securing the thread onto the needle so it doesn't accidentally pull out. But honestly, I just leave lots of slack like that, and I don't have too much trouble. Just keep it the old KISS principle, right? Keep it simple. Okay, let's get this other guy and put him on here. Just going to flatten this down so it's narrow enough to go through the needle, the eye, and that through there. Pull it through a bit. Yeah, give it a good bit of slack there. And I hope this is enough. This might be a little on the short side, actually, but now I'm committed, so. Sometimes if it's short, it just becomes a real pain to work with the sewing. You can still make it, but it just would be so much easier. Okay, so always thinking again, especially when you're doing this stuff on camera. Gotta think before you sew or punch holes or cut. So fortunately I have that old holster just sitting right over here, which is quite nice. I just look at that. Oh yeah. I think I will start. Oh, I forgot I gotta punch a little matching hole for this guy too. Let's get that in there. Easy to forget stuff. Okay. Now we're ready to rock and roll. I'm going to put this guy through like so. I think I will move this bit of water away. Do that now before I spill it all over the place. Get rid of this stick, because I don't need that right now. I don't need that. What else do I not need? Don't need this. Let's get some nice working area here. Okay, let's put this through. Put that through here. When you start, it's all kind of, everything is loosey-goosey, eh? And that's okay. I'm going to grab both needles, pull them through to equal length. So we got a good start there. Okay, so start with the top needle. And we will match this. I got a lot of slack here right now, but I'll pull that through and tighten it up pretty quick here. I'm going to match that with the hole below it. This is not as hard as it looks. If it does look hard to you, I don't know. Okay, so I got that guy. here. And then I got this needle. So we have to kind of keep track of where you started with one needle, and we'll go with the next. Look at that. See, I just matched up that hole just like that. That's partly because I matched the holes well with the punching, but also I sucked it tight with the thread, so it kind of locks it more or less. As long as I'm in line, it will lock it with the next hole. So now I'm going to always keep track that I don't, my needle coming out the other side, that I don't skip a hole ahead or something stupid like that, eh? But if you have your holes well prepared, this stage of the sewing is quite pleasant to do. But if you don't, just a simple little thing like this is really stressful. Notice that after every double pass through, I do give it a pull tight, and then line this up with the holes underneath, so I'm fairly close to where I gotta be. Well, hello again. I'm back from a short little break, and I kind of went ahead and I finished up some of the stuff that I was just last showing you, where I was putting on this belt loop. And what I'm going to do is just catch you up on what I've done in the background in between, just a little bit, because it's kind of repetitious of what I was showing you. I brought this flap around, sewed that down, and then I brought this loop up and I sewed that down. So using the same techniques I was demonstrating. And I also took the opportunity to put some treatment on the back of, on the inside of this holster. Now that it's open, I can get at that, and I'm using this satin sheen. That's what I used on the other holster. It seems to work good. I think it'll give it a bit of more moisture protection. So that's being done and dried. It dries very quickly. But so now we have ourselves this blank for the holster. And I've done a few other things that I should probably show you. And there are videos, other videos I've made that go into a lot of this, a lot of these techniques. So you might want to look at them just to get a sense of how that works. But what I'll show you is I'll take this piece of leather. I got a tool like this. I don't know, I forget what it's called. See, there's a little fork in it, and that fork is sharpened in the center, and it's meant for taking the edges off, rounding off the edges. See that? What that does? It just made a nice edge on it. And then what you can do, you do that on both sides if you like. And then you can take one of these tools here, like this. You can do almost anything, but this is a tool made for it. And I could just lick it, let's say, even just with spit. This is just a very rough example. And take the appropriate width there, and then polish that really good, and you get a nice finished edge to your leather. I think I'll need a little more moisture on this guy here. Yeah, let's try to get this guy polished up. This is just a very quick job here. It should shine when you're done. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it's basically a nice clean edge on the leather. So I've already taken the time to just quickly go around this this pattern here, and with this little edge shaver or rounder, whatever you call it, And I did it on the outside and then flipped it over. I didn't do it on the parts where these pieces of leather are going to meet, but I did it on the inside. I did it around here because that's where you're going to want to have a smooth edge all around. And I could do it now. I could burnish these edges, but I'll maybe do that all at the same time. These edges here, I'm not going to burnish them until I'm finished sewing, and then I can kind of do the whole thing as one piece. So that's another thing I've done. Now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of finishing up this holster, okay? This is where it gets kind of interesting. And before we start, what I want you to focus on is pay real close attention to that match that you have when you close up the holster. Okay, so you should have a very good match. You don't want it to be kind of little pieces hanging out. So if you do, and it's hanging over a little bit, don't be afraid to trim off some from one side and then also on the other. If you wind up making this holster a little bit skinnier than the original pattern, that's not a big deal because we're working with leather, and you can just wet the leather and it's going to stretch to fit your handgun anyway. So don't worry too much about that, but really spend some time and get these edges to match, because later on when you try to match this, the threading on this side with this side, you don't want the thing to kind of end up kind of long, because it's longer on one side than the other. It'll tend to twist the whole holster one way or the other, and then you wind up with kind of a cockeyed looking thing. So spend some time on that, look at it carefully, trim, just use your knife, and you can use a pencil or marker and just make sure you have your matches here. I've also rounded off the outside edges of this already too. And there was something else I was going to mention here too, because if you notice with this holster, take a look at that. You notice something about where these two pieces join? That's a thick piece of filler right here. In the case of this holster, I joined two pieces of leather, of this type of leather, together to give me that good thickness. But for this holster here, I just took an extra heavy piece of leather and I cut a matching piece basically to fill in here like that, and it's going to taper down just like this piece here. Okay, so but that's basically how I did this little filler piece here. I cut it out to the right shape, and then I just took the knife and I shaved it down to basically a point here, so it tapers off. A little bit of fiddly work, but that's what you want to have on your knife. I mean, on your holster. It's a little bit of space. It lets that gun come out of the holster quickly with less friction on the trigger guard, because that is kind of a thick part of the gun. Okay, so I've done all those things now since that last video, and I was saying at the last video, remember I had that piece of flax, wondering whether it's going to be long enough. I had about this much, and for sewing this little rectangular piece like that, that piece of flax was just barely long enough. So it was pretty close. Okay, so the thing I want to do, I want to decide which side to start with. I've kind of made a mark here where I think this is optimally set to start. I'm going to check it out again. Okay, so this is going to meet fairly well, but I'm only going to sew really up to about here. But what I plan to do is I'm going to make my sewing groove extend right around, just so it looks nice. But when I do have this holster all sewed up, I'm going to sew it right up to here, it's going to be pretty well impossible. It would look nice, let's say, to have the stitching going all the way around so it continues instead of just stopping here. So what I'm going to do is after I make my line for doing my sewing, I'm going to, before I start to sew this together, I'm just going to go ahead to this part here, and I'm going to do a little cross stitch right around here to meet with this loop at the back. This side doesn't need to be any special case. So that again is this whole principle of watching out that you don't work yourself into a corner, because once the thing is all closed up, there's not much you can do. In fact, right now I could even put the little snap in here before sewing it up, but actually I can get a snap in there, I think, even after it's closed up. So I'll wait on that. But I mean, if I had some problems getting the snap in, and I had to take out and stuff and fiddle with it, you know, on second thought, I might just do this snap now, because just in case, this is going to be another topic here. It's one thing that happens with this kind of hardware is, and I'm going to show you as clearly as I can, they are different sizes of snaps. Okay, so what we're talking about is we're talking about this, okay? That's a snap there, and it has the male end here, female end there, and a nice shiny button on the top. Okay, so this one here has got to be that female end, right? So we're going to need a post, and this is going to be just a plain post. Okay, take a look at that. See, that's just a plain post. On the other side, it's just open like that. It doesn't have to look nice because it's going to be on the inside of this thing. And I'm going to put that through here if I made this hole big enough. If not, I'm going to have to punch it out a little more. You might have to. Yep. Okay. So we will do that. We will do that. Let's take this punch. I'm going to punch it out through this side. This is where it depends on you having the right diameter punch and stuff like that, eh? Just going to widen out that hole a little bit, because the deeper it goes, the bigger a hole it makes, right? I can even push it through like this, and widen out that hole a bit. Let's see. We want this to be a nice snug fit. Okay, so see what I have here? I have that much sticking out. And that's, I'm guessing I can get away with that. But if the leather was a little bit thicker, this post wouldn't stick out far enough for me to basically, what do you call that? Rivet. I want to rivet that end onto the base of this female end, right? So you got to have enough sticking out, and if it's kind of iffy, you're going to have trouble. It'll either not take right away, or after a little bit of use, it won't hold tight enough, and this little button will come right off. So let's give this a try. It's always good to show this stuff. You know, when you see most videos that are so well prepared and planned, they never make any mistakes, nothing ever goes wrong. And then when you try to do it, you find out it's a different world. Okay, so these little kits here usually come with a little anvil or whatever to set underneath. This part here that's rounded, yeah, this part here that's round, that's usually for the button end because it's a bit rounded. So I think, yeah, it is a bit rounded. Okay, so I'm going to be putting that flat thing here. So I just need to have that on there. Okay, line that up with that. And I'm going to put this little puppy on there. And then I have this little punch. Now this is the thing you want to use, because when I put that in the hole of this and give it a smart whack, it's going to flare out the end of that post and rivet it in place. This is always a little bit iffy. Sometimes, I think this, based on my experience, this one will work. Yeah, don't want to go too crazy on it, but there's not much. And you know, worst comes to worst, you can always take it off and put another one on, but it is a bit of a pain to take them off. So here you can see on the inside that post is flared out. Maybe it could be a bit more. Give it a good tug. Seems to be holding on okay. I'll look at it, make sure it's flared out all around good. Yeah, it looks like she's okay. I don't want to hammer the crap out of it too bad, because then you don't want to, maybe the metal can only take so much. But I'm going to give her a little, kind of change the angle of the post a bit. And I think we got her made there. Okay, so now we have, put this kind of away. We now have that rivet on there. Get that done and out of the way. And by the way, although I did water treat this side, when I'm done the whole holster, I'm going to do the outside as well. Okay, so here we got our thing ready to go. And what's going to make it tricky is putting this fillet in. Oh boy, this is always kind of a little bit of a nervous part for me too, because you know, you put all this work into this thing, and a little slip of the knife or of this little gouger or something like that, and then you got kind of messed up the project to a certain extent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. Let's clear some of this stuff out of the way here. Don't need that hammer no more. And don't need this guy. Okay. Let's get rid of some of this garbage. Have a good clean working surface. And let's try to get a nice countersunk groove in here so that the threads are not exposed. Okay. You just take this. Well, hopefully you can see that well. I take this little tool. Make sure my glasses are on right. Keep the tool at 90-degree angles to the edge as you go around the curve, okay? Now I'm going around this curve here. Keep in mind where it is. You have to stop too. Yeah, about there. We got ourselves a bit of a groove. I usually run it the second time because I like to push my luck, I guess. But if you do, make sure you stay in that same track. Don't try, let's see, if you go, don't try to let the tool follow its path by its feel. Don't try to make it go where you want it to go, which is what I was sort of starting to do here. Either that or my first track wasn't exactly where it should have been, but I think we're doing okay here. So I'll just clean that up a little bit. the thread is going to go through there later, so now I kind of cleaned it up a little too. So now I've got a bit of a sewing groove. I could do it on the other side right now too, which I think I'll do, because I have a mark here on where it should meet up this side as I've been examining it. Okay, so I'm going to take it from here, and you know, when you do this, don't press too hard. That's also what tends to make things go a little wonky. Just lightly cutting. If you don't have one of these tools, that's probably one of the more essential tools to get as a leather worker, because it makes so much difference, not only in how the leather looks when finished, but it also lets the thread countersink into the leather, so that it's, with rubbing, the thread doesn't wear, right? Because these are not showcase items that we're making. We're making stuff for the field. It has to last and be durable. I'm spitting all over this leather. Okay, so I've got my 2 sewing grooves now made. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make the holes down this one side. And once I make my holes down this side here, then I'm going to stitch up that portion that I was talking about so that it looks finished. And then I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to take my filler and I'm going to match that with these holes. And then, in fact, I'll have it stick out a little bit if I have to. It's not too happy with that filler in some respects. It'll work. Okay, so then I'm going to match my holes through the filler, which is going to be tricky because it's so thick that I'll be using my awl again to mark the dots. But because it's so thick, if you go in just a little bit of an angle, left or right or forward or backwards, then your holes on the other side of this thing are going to be all out of whack. So I'm going to be checking the holes on this side that I make on it in the end to see that they're suitable. It's going to be fun getting the holes all the way through there and make sure they match, because I want to get myself a good start here so that my threads, the sides stay together and the holster doesn't twist. So I hope you don't mind me spending a little bit of time talking about that, but I think it's important. Okay, so plus I'm a little nervous. I always am when I do this stuff. I don't want to screw it up. I really don't. Okay, so remember what I was talking about this piece here, how much of that flax I had to use? How much you think I'm going to use for that? That's going to be a lot, eh? But that's not the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to be punching my holes through here. And frankly, I like using these thicker tongs. This little 2-piecer is good for going around tight corners, but these guys here, they leave a bigger hole that is a better fit for the needle to get through. But can I use this? I don't think I can go with that wide of a tong for going around these curves. So fortunately, I have this guy here. By the way, one of the things you want to watch with these tongs, you're looking at it there, take a look at it edgewise too. Because sometimes, while you're using it, you're always ripping them in and out of the leather. One of the tongs could bend. In fact, one of these is just slightly bent. And then what you get is I'm always rubbing my back because I'm sweating. It's hot here in the house. But then what you get is a slight mistracking on your holes. and it does show up. Oh boy, it doesn't take much. This is not flexible type metal. Make sure they haven't, the spacing of the tongues hasn't changed either. Okay, so looking down it looks like doesn't take much, and you will notice it. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Okay, I should just check this guy too. This one is staying good. The spacing, because nothing worse than realizing that after the fact and saying, "Oh no, why didn't I spot that before?" Okay, so I'm going to use this guy. I think when I walk this down here, it's going to give me enough grace to get around these curves. Around here, I might have to go down to the, I'll probably have to go down to the 2-tongue one to make that tight corner. We will deal with that when we come to it. Okay, so what do you think? Let's just go ahead and do this, right? Part of the problem is my glasses are not, they're falling off my head. Let's see if I can fix that without breaking them. It's a real pain having, yeah, they're holding on a bit better, I guess. Now, as we do this, remember to try to keep that fork straight up and down. That's good. Through there. And when it's going one way in, I always continue the fork using the last hole that I punched is the first hole for the tongue on its next one. That way you're pretty guaranteed to have the right spacing. And it doesn't take much to be off that little seam before you notice it. Straight up and down. Straight up and down. You can even see on the back too, you can check. It's it does make a difference. It makes quite a difference on how well you'll be matching up with the other side, because the other side has a groove too, and these have to come through ideally through this. But I'm doing the side that I'm started doing my initial holes on the side that shows much. This is going to be always on the back side, so if it doesn't go quite down the groove and follow exactly the smoothest path, it's not so bad when it's on the side that people don't see much. So do this from this side towards that side, if you get what I mean. If there's anything that is not quite consistent or different spacing or something, your eye is always going to be drawn to that. That's the first thing you will see. Okay, so now we have our holes punched through here, and I think that's not too bad looking of a track, right? So yeah, that should do the trick. Okay, we're finished with the punching of the holes through this one side, the good side that shows on this holster. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew up this, do the kind of the false stitching on this one part that I was talking about before. And we're also then we're going to move on to this little gusset or whatever you would call that goes in here. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to just kind of start on this little gusset here first and get that out of the way, because this is kind of a tricky thing. Let's see if we can if I can give you a good view of it, you know, it's let's see here. Okay. Now you see, I've carved this piece of thick leather. I mentioned this earlier in the video. That's need to give a little space for the trigger of the gun, because the trigger of the gun is going to be sticking out sort of like that, or is going to be situated something like that. So if we have a bit of a gusset in there, that's a good thing, right? Gives a little more room to keep from pinching the trigger. And then I've cut it so that it's tapered, and that's just carving, right? If you don't know how to carve, you don't have to be a good carver to do this, but if you have no idea how to carve, you probably should have spent more time as a kid with the jackknife that your dad gave you, carving sticks. But I'm just kind of joking, but you do have to do just a little bit. Leather is not really all that hard to carve, and you don't have to do a real perfect job on this taper. But you don't want, it is better to thin it out so it all stays seamless when it's put together, right? Now the trick with doing this gusset, I was mentioning before how it is kind of tricky. It does have to be thick enough. I made actually one previously, and it was only this wide. See those two? And when I went to make a test hole, it actually, the holes from the groove would fall right below the edge of it. So I accidentally made it too not high enough, and I made a new one here. So this one here should be good enough so that when I put the pierce through, okay, when I pierce through with my awl here, right? When I pierce through, I want to be able to get into the meat of this thing, but also it's not always a perfect fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a little bit sticking out. That's not too much, because I don't want to only have so much thickness on this thing, but a little tiny bit can stick out, and that way you can always trim that off later with a knife and get everything nice and flush down here. Okay, because in the end, we're going to want it to look something nice like that, right? That is nice and flush. Looks like one piece, but it's actually, this one here is 4 pieces across. So instead of using 2 pieces similar thickness to this leather, I went ahead and got a real thick piece of leather from my stash, and so I could just make one of these, which is probably a little bit better. Now, as I was mentioned before, when we do mark this, going to want to be really focused on keeping these piercings perpendicular to the leather, so they come out on the other side the same place. Okay, so it's a little bit of skill coming into play here, I think. And I have a mark right here on the holster saying where it should begin. And if I do begin like that, then the whole thing is going to fit together. Okay, so what now? So how do I go about starting this? Actually, I could just go like so, I think. And I will trim off later some parts that I don't need. But I'm just going to take this, and hopefully I have enough meat on this thing. You know, I might just move it closer to the edge here. Yeah. Hopefully you can see that a little bit, what I'm doing. I think I'm going to play it a little closer to the edge. Yeah. Get this lined up. Could be just a little bit above, not much. Maybe starting just a bit back. I want that first hole to line up. Let's see, that's probably gonna do okay there. Yeah. Okay, let's make our piercings. Trying to do this vertical because of the thick leather. It's going to be really important to get this stuff straight up and down. Not just straight up and down along the front and back, but sideways too, because otherwise, through that thick piece of leather, your holes start to meet up on the other side if you're not consistent. Not letting this leather strip wiggle around or nothing. I think I'm through, eh? I'm all the way. Okay. So now I should have some marks here. They're not easy to see, but they're there. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to emphasize these holes some more. Because one thing about leather is the marks you make in leather like this, they tend to sort of heal up, and then you can't find them anymore. So while these little pinpricks are fresh, I'm going to go make them a little deeper so they're good and visible. And then for piercing through this thick leather, I will use only the piercing fork that has only the 2 tines on it, because they're kind of narrow, good cutting tines. I'm actually very glad I have that particular fork, which you'll see in action next, because it can cut good and at the same time not get too stuck in the leather. Okay, so you see that? You got the marks there. Okay. Oh, yeah, let's see here. Now, this is the one I'm talking about. This 2 sharp little tongs. Let's see if we can do this. How come this is wiggling around? Let's try it this way then. Need my hammer. Okay. And straight up and down. Okay. Straight up and down, no left and right. Yeah, it's looking good. Oh, it's going to be real fun getting this out of there. Oh my. What have I done? Better just use a pair of pliers so you can get some good torque on that leather. This stuff is stiff leather. And as I work the leather, that's what makes the little holes disappear too. Okay, now I've brought the holes through this side here. So I brought the holes through on this side. But on this side, they're not very visible and they're not very open. So I'm going to be really thorough on this. And I'm going to try to bring them through. Actually, I could bring them through with the awl too, but maybe if I just tap them quickly through like this, it might be better. Like I said, I'm not a pro, just a guys with a hobby. Okay, so now I've got the holes through this side and this side, and you can see already the holes on that side are starting to they're starting to heal up, and it's going to be hard finding those holes. Okay, so what you can do is you can go like this. Try not to pierce yourself. I'm going to make these holes bigger. Enough? Nope, because I'm going to do it from this side. This side is opened up pretty good, but you want to get it. Because when you're doing that figure 8 saddle stitch, your needles are coming in from both sides. You see where the needle should go, but when the holes are healed up, you don't know where the needle can go, and then you spend forever on every stitch trying to find where that hole is, because there's no visible evidence of it on the leather itself. So hopefully this now will stay visible, and I've got that out of the way. Okay, folks, enough time with the fillet. Let's see. Let's move on to the false stitching of this piece here. Now, I think where I'm going to have to start the stitching from is, let's see, about there. Yeah, the one right at the end of there. Okay. Yeah, I think I can do that. I'll start one back from there. Oh, there's my flax. Okay. I highly recommend using this wax flax. I won't need quite as much of this time because I'm only going through one layer of leather, but still it is fishing back and forth, so it can be surprising how much you need. My basic rule of thumb is whenever I think I got the right amount of length, then I add more, because it usually is more. Okay. The needles. Left the old threads on them so I can find the needles easier. Okay. Okay, so get that threaded. I'm going to start it right from here. Needles to match up. There we go. Okay. Which needle is which? Okay. This isn't securing anything. This is just for looks, right? So don't have to. Just want to make it look good. Pretty easy work now. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm going to do about 4 back stitches. When I back stitch, quite often a pair of pliers is handy because it's a harder push to get that needle through. One more stitch and we'll cut this puppy off flush. Ooh, that's a tough one. Okay, I'm just gonna cut it off. Let's get a knife here. This is not holding anything. Okay, so when you do this, make sure you don't cut one of your stitches. Come on, baby. There we go. That's one. And don't cut the leather on the other side too. Better to leave a little bit of the thread exposed, sticking out than cut into your leather. You don't want to do that. I actually did that once in the past. Okay, so now we have a nicely stitched piece there. Does that look okay? We're gonna work on stitching up this side of the holster now. We have our fillet ready. Okay, folks, it looks like we're coming down the home stretch. Now, from where we left off, I had finished punching the holes along the side here and false stitching that one little section there. And we're going to move on now to closing this puppy up. We made our little gusset here, that filler piece. So that's all done. And the trick now is to get this thing put together in a way that's not going to cause any problems, misalignment, and that's going to make it easy for stitching. Okay. Now, as far as misalignment goes, I've gone the route of I already punched in these holes here, right, as we saw before. Now I could have gone through, matched it up, and tried to mark them with this awl on the other side to be sure, but really that is time consuming and it has its downsides too. So since I matched these patterns up very carefully and I have the little gutter groove for the stitching nicely made at the right distance from each edge, I have gone the route of just taking this and punching the holes using this cutting fork, starting from the same place as I started from here and coming right down and in such a way that the spacing should be identical to here. But that's not where I left off. And this is something I think that you might want to take note of if you do this, because this can still be a very painstaking, frustrating job trying to get the needles matching up. Because one of the problems is that these holes especially on the suede side here, they tend to close up. And when you're trying to find your way through from one side of the leather to the other and finding the matching hole on the other side, it's very difficult sometimes. And those holes will close up just from you handling the leather. So there is a way to deal with that. I sort of went through that a little bit with making this gusset. I really opened up these holes using this awl here, right? So after I punched these final holes on this side, then I went through, and for each hole, I came in from the rough side and I pierced it all the way through with the awl. I didn't bother recording that part because it's getting a little repetitive, but I'm sure you can understand that. And I just went through each hole, and by doing that, I have opened up those holes, and I've actually been careful not to handle or press on the leather to keep those holes open, because if you start working on it, it's going to close them up by pressing on them. Okay, so I think we are ready to sew this thing up, and we will see whether I have succeeded in doing it an easy way, or if this is going to be a frustrating exercise. I've done it in the past, and it's worked out really well. A little difficult with the gusset, but I think it should work well. Now, when we were talking before at the beginning, early in the video, how much uh, flax you need, I'm guessing this is going to be hopefully enough. And one of the downsides to using one single piece to do a whole long seam like that is, by the time you get near the end, this flax has been pulling in and out and in and out through the hole so often, it starts to get a little raggedy. But so you want to be gentle with your flax as you're working with it. But you'll probably sort of see what I mean as we go along through this. That's why I record all this stuff for that holster in full length. I can always maybe dice up this video later on and have some just put together the highlights, but for some, you might get a benefit out of seeing this whole thing done. Okay, so do I have my camera's recording? Yeah, okay, then let's do this thing. This is one of the most satisfying, well, the most satisfying stage of doing this work, provided things work well. I'm going to take this needle, and we're going to start at the very beginning. And maybe I better make sure yeah, okay, so that's going to go through here. Let's see how easy it is to get that needle through. Not too bad. It's a hard push. We might be using this pair of pliers a bit early on for this. Okay, let's pull this guy through. And let's get our thread evened out so we have the same length on each side, to begin with. Okay. There. Hopefully that's going to be the right amount. Did I pick the right pin? Yeah, I did. Okay, so we're going to come across here. Pull this through. Now it's such a long thread, it's going to be a little bit of fun dealing with all the slack and stuff, but we'll manage. Okay, so I'm going to pull these two guys together here. And I think I will start on this side here. And we're going to try to find that these ones are going to be loose for a while. Okay. We get this one through and through this hole. I'm going to try not to press the holes I've made in this gusset too much. And quite frankly, this has taken me so long that I'm losing a bit of sunlight from the outside. I hope the camera's still giving you a good picture, but it's a bit dark now. You want to have really good light when you're doing this stuff, ideally. Because you're trying to see these little holes, eh? Okay, I'm going to pull this guy through. Then I'm going to bring this guy through while I have a good gap. Get that through the other hole. And then line that up with this one here. There we go. And pull this guy through. Let's see. We can get this working here. This is kind of, once I get enough tension, enough friction on the string, then things won't be popping apart anymore. So no need to panic. This part is kind of fiddly. And if I pull the strings tight, then that helps ensure that the needle will find the next hole. Okay. See, look at that. See, I went through that thick piece there, but because I did a careful job of lining up the holes beforehand, this would have been a very difficult exercise if those holes weren't perfect. Okay, let's put that guy there. Let's put, and notice I'm still holding my grip on the leather after having passed that needle through. Eh? Now I'm gonna take this through. So I'm not relaxing my grip on the leather. I don't want those holes, the alignment of the holes, to shift at all. Give it a good tight tug. So now that filler is really locking in place nicely. And you see that gusset is now totally enclosed within the stitch. All the stitches look even. I will trim that little piece off that's sticking up with a knife, and it'll be nice and flush. And then at the end I will burnish the edges of the leather so it's all nice and smooth and shiny. I think this is going to work out just fine. Okay. See, now I'll be able to just push the needle through like nothing. So, any of you notice that I reached the end of the seam now, and I've got my first back stitch in. I'm going to bring her back at least four. Okay, one more. That is done, and I did have enough flax spooled out to do this job, fortunately. Okay, let's cut this. Cut that guy off. Gonna kind of cut upward as you're doing at the same time. You want to cut the threads ahead of it. So there we have the holster threaded up. What do you think, folks? Empty gun. Let's see how this fits here. I think she's going to work just fine. What do you think? If it doesn't, if it's tight, I'm just going to have to just wet the holster a bit. But no, that's just a nice fit. Look at that, eh? So, we got ourselves the making of a nice holster. I promised that I was going to say how I close this bottom end. Okay, this holster has that. I will be putting a plug on the bottom of this. And basically, I just cut one out to a tight fitting size, the right size for that hole. And I think I used some leather parge to glue it in. And it doesn't take much stress, that plug at the bottom. So I'll do that. I'm going to put the snap on here. I'm going to burnish the edges. I will be showing you all that stuff when it's done, as I do it. And then I'll put some leather treatment on it to waterproof this thing. But look at this, you can see what it's going to be like now, right? Isn't that a thing of beauty? I think if I put my glasses on, I think that the seam that's sewed up, it looks quite good. It's nice that it just continues running right around like that. That was one of the plans we had too, right? Just have that seam run through with the false stitching and then start really stitching the halves together from this part. And even the back side looks good. Nothing wrong with that, hey? And see the gun cut. Well, she's not, it doesn't have to, it's going to be held in anyways. It doesn't have to be so tight that it can't fall out. But the trigger is covered. Everything is done to legal Canadian specs. Looks like this flap is going to cover nicely, meeting with that curve. I like that too. So down to just the short strokes now, folks. Let's get on to the next part. Well, we're back now, and we're going to continue on with the completion of this holster. And the first thing on the list of things to do is to fix up a little boo-boo I made when it came to putting the snap for retaining the flap on this holster. It's actually doing these snaps is one of the more kind of tricky things in this leatherworking stuff, because these things yeah, they'll cause problems at times. Once you get them in place correctly, they're great. But initially, what happened in this one here, I had a packet of snaps, and the problem is with some of these snaps is they have a little stud. So here's the snap I'm talking about, right? And there's a little stud that comes up, and it's got to be thick enough to get right through that leather. Otherwise, you can't flange with a punch the ends of it to secure it. And with the packets I get quite often, that little stud that sticks up, or the post, is long enough, in the case of the female end of this device, to get through the leather. And then when you go to the top one where you want this button part and the male part to go in, then you find out your package has a shorter stub on that one, and then now you're stuck because this one, the leather is too thick for the stud to come through all the way sufficiently to flare it. So once you're in that position, it's kind of put you in a box, because you don't really want to be mixing the male end of a different package, or especially a different maker of these. I don't know what you call these things. They're snaps. The makers of these snaps. You don't want to mix them up, the male and the female, because they might not fit quite perfectly into the bucket of that female end. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to remove this guy, and I'm going to have to reapply one from a brand new package. I went to the store and I took the holster with me just to make sure I have a package of these that are correct thickness or depth for both the male and the female end. And so I picked that up, and I'm going to match those two together. But in the meantime, the problem that I'm faced with is I got to remove this guy here. So that is what a Dremel is for. You know, I got my little kit of Dremel bits and stuff. It's handy to have that. There's other ways you can do it. I think you could take an electric drill and just kind of grind it down too. But I just got to grind down that little flange enough so that this thing just falls apart. And then we're going to have to reapply a new one. Okay? So let's give that a shot. See if we can get this thing out of here. Don't want to damage anything. And I'll just fire this puppy up. There she goes. So much for that. The little female end just flew out. It's probably pretty hot right now, so let's see. But the little sharp edges are left on this thing. Did I get it? Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, it fell off. Ooh, it's hot. Okay, so after all that fiddling around, I did get her off, but I really don't like doing that. Rotten little things to get off. Okay. And I hope that hole is not too overly sized. I mean, it's still going to work, but you can see that. What's left of that little rivet there. Throw that away. And let's take a look at these new rivets here. Okay. These are the proper size. And when it comes to doing these things, it's important to not get confused too. So you don't want to be too super aggravated like I am right now doing this stuff. And then make a dumb mistake. Okay, so here I've got the inside. Okay, I'm going to show you in a second here. So generally, you want to have the male side on that end there, and then that can fit into the female socket on that side. I'm just going to dump these guys. Well, I'll just put them over like that. Let's get this guy open too. Let's put this puppy away. Oops. Okay. So let me show you what I mean here. For the female side, you want to have just a plain button on the bottom, and you want to have one of these cups on the top. just get these other guys totally away, because that's one mistake I've made so many times in the past, is I've accidentally mixed up these two with one of these ones here, putting a button on the inside and stuff like that. Really dumb, but it's easy to do when you're concentrating on making a fit right. Okay, let's see. So here we have this guy here. I noticed that this one doesn't come with punches. These, but I have one here, and that should be the proper punch for expanding this. Yeah, it's got a good bell on it. So yeah, so you want to have that punch there like that, not this way around. It's got to be this way to flare out that post. And you want to have an anvil. Now these anvils, they have sort of a depressed, a concave side to them, and that's for fitting the button side against when you're. And then for the one I'm doing right now, it's just flat on the bottom, so you use a flat. And get yourself a hammer. Let's get rid of this Dremel tool. We won't need that now. And I'm gonna have to position that anvil so it's properly. Yeah, I think that'll do. Maybe pull a little bit that way. Get this puppy here. Let's see if this works. Let's see. Okay, she's getting on there, but she's still a little wiggly, which means make sure that anvil is in place on there. And let's give her just a little bit of a longer post. Now she's tightening up. I'm going to give her a little bit more. Don't want to do this more than you have to, but it's got to be enough so that it holds that button. It's got a little bit of wiggle in it, so I'm going to give it just a slight bit more. I kind of give her a little bit of an angle shot too, to kind of make sure it's there. That's on there really good. Yeah, okay. So take my little anvil out of there. Didn't do any damage on that side. So now we have the clasp on the side there. Okay, this is getting to be a bit of a hassle, all right. Now, luckily I've already carefully measured where this hole has to be by putting the gun in, and you can see here when I close it up, you'll get the hole there, and I want it to close up just a little bit of tension on it as it closes, and then that should make for a good fit. Could be, yeah, that's about right. Okay, so let's see if we can do this here. This one here, we're going to have to take the round end. Make sure you do it the right way around. It's easy to, I know this thing sounds stupid, but it is easy to just put stuff on backwards. See, now this one here, it's got to bevel out into the bottom of that. And then we're going to use the anvil on the concave side. I guess I shouldn't have the gun in there while I'm doing this. And when it comes to fitting these things, if they're really stiff to snap, I highly recommend putting a little bit of wax on both the male and female ends, especially to start it off. And you'll find it makes a huge difference if they're really stubborn, kind of taking apart or getting them snapped together. So definitely keep that in mind. Really helps with snaps. Okay, let's get this guy in there. I'm sure you got everything right. Okay. Ooh. Oh, that post is a little on the big side. This punch is a little on the big side to fit in this thing here, so I hope I didn't distort it. It's already tight. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, that's nice. I was a little afraid that that when the post kind of stuck inside the male end there, that it might have expanded out this little piece here, but it didn't. And it is tight in there already. So, when you look at it, you want to make sure that inside part is flared out to hold everything secure. Okay, so I think we are now in a stage where this thing should snap in place and we have ourselves an assembled holster, basically. That is out of the way. Hooray, hooray. Okay, what should I do next? Well, I think what I might do next is burn it. No, I'm going to trim this. I got a bit of this crap here. Oh, crap. It's a fillet. That fillet that we worked so hard on. I made it intentionally stick out a little bit just so that I wouldn't by any chance come below the round parts where the two halves meet. So I'm going to take a knife and I should be able to just skim that off given the knife is sharp. If the knife isn't sharp, then it's not so easy. Well, even here it's got to, kind of meet a little bit. So I'm going to have to do a bit of carving here, folks. Maybe off camera. Let's see if I can do this. Let's see how good this knife is. You know what? I think I'll carve away from myself. Okay, so I'm getting there. Still got to take it down a little bit. How's that looking? Getting there. Want to be right flush, but no more below flush either. Just a little at a time. Taking small amounts off at a time. Yeah, okay, I'm going to call that done. Now. See, that's about right, eh? Now, when it comes to burnishing the edges, better get rid of some of this garbage again. So let me just think what I have to do here, okay? I think I was going to put a plug in here. I'm not sure if I'm going to include putting a plug in the bottom in this video because it is kind of an optional thing. And I'm still kind of thinking up. It's a little up in the air whether I will put one plug in there. Because there is a downside to having a plug that if you do get crap falling into the basket of the holster, then it can't fall through either, or moisture can't go right through either. So there's pluses and minuses, but I am going to burnish the edges here and apply that leather treatment to it. And I think that stage, this will be done. And I can try fitting this holster onto the belt I've already made for this one, since they're interchangeable, and we will be done with this. Okay, so it's the burnishing is kind of a fun thing to do. It's actually a bit of work. Let's try it. Do this here. Now I like to put enough water on the holster to wet that edge good. Okay. So here, we'll put some here, put some here. Okay, there we go. Make sure it's wet right to the edges. Some people just spit on it, which works. And I think some people just, they put a kind of a wax on it too. I've always just done it with spit or with water. So we'll see how this goes here. I'm going to take a tool that's about the right width. So for this part here, I'll try to do this where the camera can see it. You want to do it fast and just kind of burn it in there. So now, as I'm going along there, you can see it's just burnishing it nicely. If it looks like it doesn't have enough water on any part, see what you're basically doing is you're laying the fibers down of the leather. Once they get really compressed like that, then they're nice and shiny. So you can see that already here, eh? Let's get some more on this one. And this one, we're getting into the fillet area, and which means I'm gonna have to use a wider part here. I mean, if you have to, you can also use this side here, but I think we're good with this one. So it's starting. Unfortunately, it seems to be kind of separating right there. I don't know, it's a little bit funny there. I could maybe bring this part here down a little bit. Now that I'm burnishing it, it's starting to show that. And there too, starting to raise up that fillet. Now once I started burnishing it, that's kind of interesting. So I'm going to cut it down some more. I don't want to do something goofy. This is where you see me cut myself live on TV. Because I'm having to get a little close to my thumb here now. I'm kind of almost willing to say that's good enough. Okay, let's just try a little more burnishing here. Okay, let's put this aside. We don't need that anymore either. Let's burnish this up some more. That's polishing up pretty good. Honestly, I was hoping for a little bit better. Still a bit of a raised edge there. I don't know if I can fix that or not. I'm becoming not too happy with this Fisker's knife either. It doesn't like to hold the blade in tight, and I don't see how any way of really tightening it, so it's wiggling around. But I'm finishing this project with it, and I think down the road I'm gonna get myself a better leather knife. You know, it's it is what it is. Okay, I'll try to make it as good a fit as I can. This is one of the reasons too why I don't do this stuff professionally for payment, because then when it's for myself, I can just decide for myself when is good enough, and then I'm happy with it. You know, I just but you can see this part of the the work is substantial. Okay, so now we've got the filler in there. This is all burnished. Gonna do this part here. Gonna come around here and do the rest of this. Let's see if I can get this kind of tricky part here. Let's see. Some of this stuff you can use the edge of the stick. The idea is to just get the fibers to lay down and compact them. That's the main thing. Okay. Any way you can do that, it's good. So once they're wet, and you compress them really good together, see, that's burnishing it up, not too bad. And we'll get this part here. Okay, let's try to come along the edge here. Try to get it so there's no little dry spots, but I don't want to overdo it, spilling over the edges either. Okay, let's see what we can do here. I'll use this part of the post for this tight area. I could have actually done this part. Ooh, take a little sliver off there. See that? Sliver of leather decided to come loose. Never noticed that before. Oh, shit. Oh, boy. I made a little slip of the knife, and I'm paying for it. So now I'll have to create that round part with my knife edge. Okay, let's try that again. This is the part of the holster that's you're going to see a lot of contact with the gun. So it's nice to have the edges rounded so everything kind of slips in and out nice and easy. I think I'll have to do this like this. Okay, it's coming along not too bad. check it, make sure I've had sufficient moisture to get the fibers to lay down. That's basically what you're looking for. So you can see here, this is starting to look like it should. It's got a nice burnished edge on it. And I can work my way now up to these parts here. I think that's looking not bad. Okay, let's just start. You don't want to, when you're doing this, you don't want to wet such a large area that by the time you get to that stretch, the water is dried out. So I'm going to do to this part here. I'm going to use a notch like that. Okay, so that's looking not bad. Okay, I get this knife out of here, put it in this little case too. Quite cut myself with it. The trials and tribulations. Let's see. Gonna look okay? I think so. Let's do it to this stretch here. Look pretty good, I think. You know, that edge is starting to look, if you catch it in the right light, it has a little shine off it. That's what you want to see. Okay, I think you can do this stretch here all in one. We'll see. Okay, let's see how that works. It's like a little bit of a workout doing this stuff. But it's well worth it. Makes a nice finished look to the item. I'll put a little bit over here, catch that little bit of a stretch here. See that tip? It's kind of nice for getting into these little tight spots. Okay, so let's see. Need a little bit more there. Let's look for any spots that are still kind of rough. Okay. But the idea, as I said, is to get all those fibers laying down flat. I don't know if you can see that, but I've From the angle I'm looking at this, it has a real nice sheen along the edges. So we got everything, all the fibers laid down quite well here. Look at my poor fingernail from trying to pry that thing off. Doggone it. Huh. Okay, so I think we got ourselves the burnishing part done. Next, we're going to get on to the staining, the leather treatment. And we'll put this thing on the holster and see how she looks. Okay, folks, for those of you who have been following along, this is nearly the end, the final two steps, basically, before completing this holster. But this satin sheen leather treatment that I've been using, I'm really very happy with that. So it gives a really good waterproof treatment to the leather, and also gives it a nice look as well. So I'm going to be doing the treatment of this leather now. I've already done the inside part before I sew things together. So I've really got good coverage all the way through the inside and now the outside. One other thing that we're going to do that I discussed previously is putting a plug in the bottom of the holster. Now this plug, I've decided to go ahead with it. I mean, there is some downside to it. If the plug is really close to the muzzle and you get a bunch of dirt and crap falling inside the basket of your holster, it's conceivable that when the gun is put inside the holster, that the muzzle could be scraping against that grime that's in the bottom. So you really don't want to have grime in the bottom of your holster if you're going to have a plug like this. That's one argument for just leaving it open. But in my case, we do so much traveling with the gun in winter conditions, and often having to kneel down in the snow in order to work on something. And the snow could be quite deep, and that could very easily just push right up inside the snout of this holster and then plug the muzzle of the gun, which could also then lead to an overpressure situation when you go to fire it. So I'm going to go with putting a plug in this. And what you see here right now is just I've cut out the plug to the right dimensions, but it's just loosely pushed in there. I'm not going to glue it in quite yet because I want it to just sit overnight, and I'll probably put a little bit of rubber band or some light clamping on there just to make sure it's really making good contact, and let it sit overnight like that. So that'll be done later, but you can see how it's going to look now, right? And the cement that I'll be using for that is called barge. It's a type of, it's made for leather. I suggest getting a little brush with it. And with this barge, you just put some on both sides of the surface that you want to glue. And you just let it sit there and dry for 15 to 20 minutes. And once you've it's sat there and kind of become tacky, that's when you put the leather together. So I'll push the plug in at that time, and then I'll kind of clamp it a little bit and let it sit overnight before it gets real heavy use. So, okay, we've got this taken care of. I'm just going to leave it in there as I do the staining, and then I'll get the stain on this plug as well. But in order to do the staining, you want to use this satin sheen, and you want to make sure it's shaken up and mixed well. It's got to get that thing open. It's very securely closed. I think I got it here. Let's see, I got sort of a piece of plastic left sitting on there. Okay, let's see, yeah, there. And I'm going to use just a little sponge, and I'll take that and I will wet it. I have an extra bottle here because this is this one here is nearly empty. So let's just put some of this stuff on here. I'm starting on the back just to be on the safe side in case something unexpected happens with this stuff. I'm going to get it into all the cracks. And actually, I think this stuff is going to go pretty far. You might not even have to go to the second bottle the way it's looking. Just put it on lightly. Rub it in. It's good to rub this stuff like this in. Get it right into all the cracks. Okay, folks, that's basically it for the here, let me just wipe up this little bit of splatter. That's looking good. My wife is wanting me to do this to her holster as well. Let's see here. Got a little plug there working good. Okay. So that is the finished holster. I can take this holster now, put it in, snap it up, and I can put it on my holster, on my belt. Don't want to handle it too much now while that stuff is drying, but since we're here anyways, let's just see what this looks like. Now I'll take this apart for a second, lighten it up, and this is going to go in here like this. That's a nice tight fit. Again, I mentioned, at the risk of repeating it too much, that this the plans for this holster, including the belt and the speed loader, are available on my Buy Me a Coffee page. If you want to replicate this exactly, probably can't see me too much anymore, but there we go. Something like that. Bring this holster around a little bit. There we go, folks. That is the holster. And I can put a little piece of string like I have on this one here on there, but I think it's going to be a bit tight. So now I should be able to, hopefully you can still see this, should be able to access the gun quite quickly. I think I better review this bit of tape here, see if you can see me or not. But very functional. If you can't see me in the camera, then I'll have to refilm that part. So there we have it. We have a handgun, Model 629, 4-inch barrel, mounted on the belt now. You can see right here's the speed loader, ready to go. If you can't do it in 6 shots, you get another try with another 6 shots. And eventually this holster will turn the same color as that belt. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's been a really long one. I'm still considering about whether to chop it up and how to chop it up into shorter segments and different ways of offering it up. Like I might give an in-depth one, might create a members. I've been thinking of adding a members option to the channel. That might be another way to do it. You know, this one's going to be like a it's probably close to 4-hour video, but in installments on specific topics, it might be a pretty useful delivery mechanism. You know, letting people just watch the quick bits, and if they want to go into depth, then they can go to the associated section in the full-length video that this one is. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to try to subscribe to this channel. We have products that we're selling in the online store. You'll see those listed down below, and the Buy Me a Coffee, subscribe, super thanks. All these are great ways to help keep things going with the Weighted Native Chronicles. So I want to thank you for watching, for your patience with my imperfections, and I hope you leave some comments down below, asking questions. Let me know what you think. If you have some different methods of doing things, I'm very happy to hear that, and it helps everybody else out as well. So from the Weighted Native Chronicles, I just want to wish you God bless, and we'll catch you next time. Did you like this video? If you did, I think you're gonna like this one right over here. So check it out. And I appreciate your subscribing if you haven't done so already. Remember to do that while you're watching this next video. Click like, it all helps us out for this channel. Catch you next time.